Hey guys, today I'm going to talk about one of the best travel cameras that money can buy. And when we travel, we always want to bring a nice camera along so that we can capture memories in a high quality way. But if your camera is so large and heavy that it's not fun to carry, then you may find yourself leaving it at home or in your hotel room or in your RV. So we want to look to something that's smaller and lighter, right? Well, there are a number of mirrorless options with interchangeable lenses, and they're great too. But suppose you want to go even smaller than mirrorless. Well, Sony makes a camera called the RX100. Now, this is a series of cameras. The first one was just the RX100 Mark I, and in subsequent years they've released new versions of the camera. Now there are at least 4 available. These RX100 cameras are fantastic travel cameras. And I have here the RX100 Mark II. I like the Mark II version because it includes a hot shoe, which is actually the Sony multi-interface shoe, which means it's compatible with a number of Sony accessories, including some really nice audio accessories. Some of the subsequent versions of the camera include a built-in viewfinder. Now, when you first look at a Sony RX100, it's very unassuming. It's a tiny little camera styled in the fashion of a traditional little point and shoot. Nobody's gonna glance at this camera and be too overly impressed with it, which actually can be an advantage when you're traveling. It's not going to attract too many thieves' eyes, I think, because it is somewhat discreet. The selling point of this camera is simple. Even though it is a small, lightweight package, there's a big, beefy 1-inch sensor inside. The sensor is smaller than APS-C size. Of course, it's smaller than full-frame size, but it's much larger than what you'll find in any cell phone out there. So you're buying this camera first and foremost because it has a nice sensor inside. What else does it have? Well, it has a traditional PASM dial on the top, which means you can put it in aperture priority or shutter priority mode, or you can fly in full manual mode if you'd like. You can interact with this camera just like you would a DSLR from that standpoint. You can control the aperture and shutter speed and ISO settings. The camera has a really nice Carl Zeiss designed lens. The lens has an effective zoom range. I believe mine is 28 to 70 millimeters, something like that. They've changed it in subsequent models, but the point is you can go from wide angle to a sort of short telephoto zoom with this one camera. Now, it is a fixed lens camera, but the one little lens is a nice lens. The Mark II, 3, and 4 series of the cameras have a tilty screen, which I find quite useful, especially for shooting video. When you're holding a DSLR, you know you've got a real camera in your hands. With this thing, it feels a little bit more like a technological gadget. Yes, it's very small, and so the controls are cramped when it comes time to actually modify the shutter speed and the aperture in camera. You may find it slightly annoying to interact with just because it's so small. Video on these RX100 cameras is really outstanding. It has a number of built-in frame rates, and I've used this camera to shoot anything from just simple vlog type of videos to more ambitious videos. If you've seen the video of us Airstream camping in Germany, you should know that almost the entire video was shot with this little RX100 Mark II. And as far as the photos go, not long ago, Christy and I went on an extended walkabout in Spain, Portugal, Morocco, France, Germany, and I found myself using this camera more than any other that I took with me. The reason really comes down to the size, weight, and power. This camera fits in the palm of my hand, and yet it is packed with a number of excellent video and photo features. In low light, you will reach the limits of the 1-inch sensor pretty quickly. But Sony puts a lot of technology in these cameras in terms of the processing of images. There's a mode, it's kind of a handheld twilight mode when the light gets low, where the camera will take 4 or 5 photos and stitch them together into one usable image. The point being that the Sony engineers have really packed this camera full of thoughtful technology to get the most out of the 1-inch sensor. You can also shoot in RAW and process your files. This is one of those cameras that you'd say punches above its weight class. The Sony Wi-Fi app is actually very good. Not only can you easily port photos from the camera to your phone, which you can use to share with your friends on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, but you can also control the camera using your phone as kind of a remote control. And you can actually see what the camera is seeing through your phone. It's a really cool and powerful feature. Makes your phone sort of the ultimate smart remote control. And I found this very useful when we're traveling overseas because, you know, you don't always want to ask a complete stranger to take your picture with your camera because that can just be kind of awkward sometimes, and sometimes there's no one around who would really want to do it. But with the smart remote control app, you can take your own picture yourself as much as you want until you get it right. Something else I admire about this camera is the shutter. It is really quiet. I just took a photo. Can you hear the shutter? So the camera is actually excellent for discreet street photography.
All right, we're crossing the street in Marrakesh.
Now, even though the lens native wide angle is not particularly wide, if you find yourself in a situation where you want an extreme wide angle, you can shoot a panorama. It has really good built-in panorama mode. Something I found useful was to set the panorama mode to take the panorama from bottom to top, turn the camera sideways, and I would get essentially a very wide angle. Now the panorama mode only saves in JPEG. It does not save in RAW format. So if that matters to you, you know, that could be a problem. But for a JPEG panorama mode, it's very good. And even though I'm discussing this camera in the context of a travel camera, I think it's a good camera for anyone who wants something better than a cell phone, but it's convenient to carry. Because so often when, let's say, a family is having a baby and they want to get a quality camera, or if they're taking a big trip overseas and they want to get a nice camera, they get something that is too big, too heavy, too complicated, and they end up just not using the thing. Camera's no good to you if it's just gathering dust in your closet or sitting in a bag somewhere. You want to bring your camera with you. And that's the beauty of the RX100 series. It's a relatively powerful little camera that is small, lightweight, very discreet, fits in any bag or really in any pocket. And so you can carry it with you anywhere. Now the newer models of the camera accept the Sony Play Memories apps. So you can add capabilities to your camera through the Play Memories app store. My only complaint with this camera is that it's annoyingly good and I end up using it quite a lot. Like when we travel and we're out and about and I want something that I can just grab quickly without a second thought. I don't have to worry about what lens is on it. I just put it in my pocket and go. Battery life is surprisingly good. It uses incredibly small lightweight batteries, but I'm getting several hundred shots per battery charge, and the aftermarket batteries are available very cheaply. So yeah, that's the Sony RX100 series of cameras. Every additional release of this camera has packed additional features into the camera body, but all of the different releases are still available for sale today. Obviously, if you get the older model, it's gonna be cheaper and it's just gonna have fewer features, but they all revolve around basically the same concept. A quality 1-inch sensor packed into a small feature-laden camera body. It's a step up from any cell phone, but it's much more convenient to carry than any DSLR or pretty much any mirrorless camera. This hits the sweet spot. It looks like a point and shoot, but it's actually much more powerful underneath the hood. That's the Sony RX100 series of cameras. If you're interested in checking out these cameras, I'll put a link in the YouTube description for this video. Thanks, guys.